everybody, and welcome to the Busted Business Bureau Season 2. This is the debut episode of Season 2. It is very exciting because I have a very special guest. She is the national organizer for Code Pink. She's a rising superstar. If you are anybody in Chicago politics, you need to know her. It is Danica.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course.
I didn't know I was on the debut of Season 2, so that's exciting.
Yeah, this is how we're launching right into the second season.
Oh.
With a bang.
Oh, with a bang.
Yeah.
Cool.
You are going to be fantastic on this episode because I need to tell the listeners, usually the way we do the podcast is that I tell somebody who doesn't know any fucking thing about the business all about it and record their reactions when they're, drunk and full of brunch. But today, the two of us know a lot about what we're going to be talking about. Yeah?
Yeah.
Today's topic is Lockheed Martin. And if you pay taxes ever, this is a must listen. And if you've lived in the city of Chicago for a full year, you've maybe heard the blight upon humanity that is the Air and Water Show.
Oh, yeah.
Is this insane celebration that we do every year where we just have a bunch of military planes flying around Lake Michigan. Lockheed Martin is a staple of the Air and Water Show. They're constantly, sending the new plane that they have to.
Which is so fun because it's like the F-35s, I think, and they're notorious for crashing.
They are
catching
on fire.
That would be they're catching on fire. They can't fly in the rain, and we're spending $1.5 trillion of our tax dollars on it. It's fucking awesome.
Not only that, it is personally inconvenient to me because they're loud.
So loud.
It's so goddamn loud.
Yeah.
For 3 days in August, every single year.
And then imagine if it crashed and you were trying to enjoy your time at the lake. Because people are at the lake, tanning, swimming, enjoying time with their kids and dogs.
It's
and
the largest free outdoor festival in Chicago, or second largest.
It's horrible. It's so damn loud. And I don't know if you want to wait to get into it, but they do testing of the F-35 planes in Vermont. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking to someone from Vermont who works on trying to kick at the F-35 testing out of Vermont on Tuesday or something.
For sure.
And they're 115 decibels, which is not safe to hear all the time. They do testing 4 days a week. Twice a day, I think.
Oh my God.
And they don't tell the residents when they're doing it because it's a quote national security threat or something. I don't know who's attacking South Burlington, Vermont. But there was this, it's sad, but it's kind of funny. The kids on playgrounds were shitting their pants because the fucking planes are flying over the playgrounds.
Oh my God.
And Vermont's in a horrible housing crisis, and because of the safety issue of the noise, they had to knock down 200 houses to do this F-35 testing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so all these people I was talking to from Vermont, they look sleep deprived. They're not doing well. They've been doing it for years too.
How is the if you don't mind me asking, the progress on kicking out?
No, it's not going well.
There's no progress.
It's not going well because every politician in Vermont is very Bernie Sanders loves the F-35s, so.
I love that for him.
Yeah.
That's a man with range.
Yeah, he sticks to his opinions, certainly.
How delightful.
I know.
How more apt of an introduction to Lockheed Martin than children sitting themselves on the playground because of undisclosed testing. This is going to be an episode for the girls. If you are on your way to work, if you're at home cracking a cold one open, I want you to imagine yourself that we are all girls gossiping about Lockheed Martin. That's the scene I want to set. Because sometimes, honestly, when I talk about military stuff, I'm sort of
Oh, but it has such a hilarious history.
This one has an incredible history. I promise you will not be disappointed. Because sometimes I hear someone's going to talk about military stuff and I'm oh, they're a nerd. And they're going to talk about how awesome tanks are. And I don't care.
Yeah.
But this is not that. This is going to be very fun. It's very for the girls. So let's talk about the history of Lockheed Martin, shall we?
Yeah.
The origins of it. Now, I'm to understand that you also did a lot of research on the origins.
Yeah, and actually, I
read the same
Yes, just in case our friends at Lockheed try and sue you, this is just his cites everything I'm gonna say.
Oh my! So she's holding Profits of War, Lockheed Martin, and the Making of the Military-Industrial Complex. Is that the rest of it?
Yes, by William D. Hartung, who I work with, and he's also a stand-up comedian. He's like an old stand-up comedian. He's awesome.
This is so fucking nuts because I was literally going to cite that I was mostly helped by this book. Because it's such a good read.
It was so dense and took me so many days to get through.
Absolutely.
And I was reading it for a book club, and he came to the book club, and he was like, honestly, I wrote this so long ago, I don't even, you're probably going to say things that I don't remember, so.
I can't believe you talked to, I feel starstruck talking to you, knowing that you talked to him.
He's awesome. He's very, very funny.
Oh my God. That's also why the book is like so eminently readable.
Yeah.
There are so many fucking funny ass quotes in it. So I cannot recommend Profits of War, spelled Prophets, Profits of War.
He's at it again with those jokes.
Usually I would say we need to ban stand-up comedians, but he's the only one who's allowed to be doing that. So the origins of Lockheed Martin extend all the way back to 1912 with Alan and Malcolm Lockheed, spelled Loughead, which becomes very contentious at some point in their life. They cite in court when they change their name because they change it to Lockheed. Oh, that was some spelling. They change it and they're like, everyone was calling us Loghead. Yeah. That was like an anecdote from the book. They became interested in aerospace engineering. They became interested in planes because of the Wright brothers. They are just like, oh, we can do that. One of them did not make it past elementary school. The other one, I believe, did. But they're like, planes, we can build them.
Yeah. I always find it interesting reading about old companies because they're always started by like siblings. Like I'd never fucking start a company with my siblings ever. And the vibe I got from the book, and I don't know if it's like completely true, it's like Alan was an idiot.
Yes.
And then Malcolm was actually super smart. Mm-hmm. And I think Malcolm was the older one. And then Alan just kept kind of dragging him back into his things that he had planned that never seemed to go well.
No. There are several instances in which they're trying to, they do build a plane. Mm-hmm. They are constantly trying to show it off, and it crashes all the time. Every single time.
Which is so funny, because they've been dead for, like, forever, and they haven't been in control of the company in decades and decades, but that's still the legacy of this company, is they build planes that crash all the time.
They really, I couldn't have said it any better myself. And so I actually did less research on Alan and Malcolm Lockheed, knowing that you did, because you were texting me all about it, and I was like, save it for the pod, girly. So if there's anything you would like to add and or subtract, you go for it.
Okay, cool. I like that. So Wayne Biddle, he's an aviation historian, called the brothers carnival performers who had become enmeshed in the birth of the aviation industry. My favorite part about that story is when, like, I forgot which time their plane crashed, because it happened like 4 or 5 times. And it was always in San Francisco. They were always crashing planes into the San Francisco Bay Area. But after they were like, all right, fuck this, we're throwing in the towel. And then they tried prospecting for gold in California in like 1925. Like this, like the gold rush happened. They did not find any gold.
It was over, and they were like, you know what? They didn't look hard enough. It's like that meme where he's like, I don't know why I just tried to describe a picture meme from like 2002. But there was also an instance in which they were up for a contract. Somebody else won, but that they had only built one plane and it crashed. So then they had to give it to the Lockheed brothers.
They had to give it to the Lockheed brothers, and it was for like the World's Fair.
Yeah.
And they were charged. And I think that plane, I don't know a lot about airplanes or, how fast they're supposed to fly. And I'm sure it's come a long way since 1920. But I was reading it, and they're in the book, and they were like, the plane reached the highest speed of 63 miles per hour.
Yeah. I was like, whoa.
Like, I've done that in my Toyota Camry back in high school.
I've done that on like a roller coaster, unrestricted.
Yeah.
After they build and crash several planes, they decide to get into, at some point during that, they decide to get into like commercially giving people plane rides, like for fun and entertainment.
Yeah.
that goes fine for a while. They had been able to repay a $4,000 loan by contracting, by having people fly on planes for fun. Then the war starts, the Great War, the first one.
Yeah.
And that becomes an area of interest for them. They participate. They're not one of the main participators in the war, the first one that there were planes in. But they were there. They increased their business. At the same time, what would become Martin Marietta it's the Glenn L. Martin Company at this point, is also participating in the war to much a greater degree of success.
Yeah, I guess we should say the company that we're talking about right now is just called Lockheed. It became Lockheed Martin in 1995 when it merged with Martin Marietta, and all those big defense companies were merging in the 90s.
Because Martin Marietta is already emerging of the Glenn L. Martin Company and a different Marietta company, which is also the Marietta one is also another merger.
Yeah.
So I do love this trend of just having one big defense contractor, and that's it.
I think after World War I is where Malcolm split off, and he was like, "My brother's an idiot. I can't fucking do this anymore." And then Malcolm leaves, and after that, Alan, I'm sure we'll get to it, has a million different failures. But then Malcolm invents the 4-wheel hydraulic braking system.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he was the smart one the whole time. I don't know what Alan was doing.
His best.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I feel like any siblings can perhaps relate to just not being able to fucking take it anymore.
Yeah. Oh, also before World War I is when Lockheed hired Jack Northrop, who was a very prominent aviation or aerospace engineer. Northrop might sound familiar because Northrop Grumman is a top 5 weapons company.
Yep.
So he worked for Lockheed Martin, and then I think he left for McDonnell Douglas, which became Boeing. So he's... So Jack Northrop was
he's getting around.
He was like Gordon Ramsay. What's the show where he goes into all the
kitchen nightmares?
Yeah, kitchen nightmares. Jack Northrop's the Gordon Ramsay of defense companies because he made Lockheed a viable business for a long period of time.
Do you think he was also catty about it?
Oh yeah. He said he left Lockheed because he got bored.
I love that for him.
I would too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course. So, barreling through, I honestly pick up most of the intense research around the C-5A.
Oh, yeah. That's some good stuff.
So, this is well after, I'm pretty sure the Lockheed brothers are dead. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yes.
Yeah,
So Lockheed Martin went out of business during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was just Allen at this point. So, because they couldn't effectively pivot to military contracting like they were supposed to, like all the other companies did in World War I. So it went out of business, but an investor named Robert Gross tried to buy the company for $40,000. And for someone else tried to buy the company too, and for legal reasons I don't understand, they had to go to court and fight over it. And the judge said to Robert Gross when he was when they approved him buying the company from Allen, because Allen was such a notorious idiot, the judge said to him, "I hope you know what you're doing, young man," because he bought this company in I think 1932, which was year 3 of the Great Depression.
That's tough. I hope you know what you're doing, young man.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to hear that from a judge.
And then so before the C-5A plane too, Lockheed's first large military contract was to Japan's military in
I would assume it's
in 1940.
I knew it.
And Pearl Harbor happened in 1941.
1941, yeah.
So I think that's hilarious.
That is yes, and slay. In the history of many yeses and slays for Lockheed Martin. Wait, I have to get through all of my DEI stuff that I wrote at the beginning for some reason. At some point before before Vietnam, it was general practice that any arms company that wins the research and development part of any arms contract will also win the production contract.
Yeah.
Because why would you want another company to like start from scratch on research and development? So even though it is, to be clear, two separate contracts, because of this, you didn't have to propose a production budget once you won the research and development part of it. The government would just sort of deal with however much you decided to spend.
Yeah.
Which is still, like, in practice, basically how it is. But by the time Vietnam rolls around, companies are now required to estimate production costs when they win the original contract. So Lockheed Martin proposes the C-5A, which is supposed to be the size of a fucking football field.
Yeah. They called it the Galaxy. That was Lockheed's version of the plane.
They decided that other cosmic bodies were not large enough.
Yeah.
They didn't encompass.
I think they had another plane called, like, they were named after constellations. So Galaxy was supposed to be, like, the biggest one. And it was supposed to, specifically for Vietnam, they needed a massive plane to transport a bunch of stuff to Vietnam in a very...
and quickly.
Quickly.
Yeah. So instead of taking several trips, they were like, just put it all in one.
Put it in one.
Pack it up. Let's go.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been foreshadowing this whole time. Spectacular failure.
Oh, it went horribly.
And this is from Prophets of War. Quote, in the case of the C-5A, slipping on schedule would bring penalties of over $12,000 per day, with a maximum fine of up to $11 million. I can read. Lockheed would also be responsible for absorbing the cost of structural deficiencies. Some bragged that the arrangement was, quote, probably the toughest contract for a major defense system ever entered into the Pentagon. However, $11 million as a total penalty for a giant like Lockheed Martin wound up being fucking nothing. So, so it truly was like a slap on the wrist in terms of how much they went over budget. Like, the government is paying them to make a plane.
This was in the 60s,
This is in the fucking 60s.
So it's a lot more money than it sounds like.
Yeah. And it goes so terribly wrong for aerospace engineering reasons that, like, I think one who doesn't have an expertise in it could imagine.
Yeah.
Building a plane the size of a fucking football field that goes quickly, hard.
And they had to build, like, I think the government, well, originally the Air Force wanted to choose Boeing's design. It was cheaper, and, like, Boeing had more of a rapport with the Air Force. But then Lockheed spent a bunch of money on lobbying, and they were like, the Air Force was like, yeah, that's fine, we'll get yours.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. The problem with this sort of contracting, as would emerge during the history of the C-5A project, was that companies were being asked to project prices over a long period of time. This left ample room for the time-honored concept of buying in, where an arms manufacturer would bid low in order to get a contract and receive hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars once it charged the Pentagon for the final and much higher cost of actually building the system. This is the bread and butter of how most of Lockheed Martin, like, can gross $70 billion a year, which they did in, like, 2022 or whatever. Is by just saying, oh, this is going to cost you nothing, and then being like, well, actually, we need to add this thing, or actually, we need to, this part doesn't work, we need to replace it with a much more expensive part. This is, it's how they can make an incredible amount of money.
Yes, and it depends on the year, but like 70 to 90% of Lockheed's revenue comes directly from the federal government,
which comes directly from us.
It's our tax dollars, so we completely fund this company, and they can't even build anything that flies.
They can't, and they keep saying, "Yeah, this thing's gonna be fucking awesome once it works."
It's so bad.
Do you remember the story of Ernie Fitzgerald, an outspoken critic of the C-5A?
Was he the, like, whistleblower in the Air Force? Yeah.
He, again, is one of the first outspoken critics of the C-5A. He's not the only one, but he's one of the more important one. From Prophets of War, Fitzgerald's decision to speak out came at high personal cost. In May of 1969, the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations started an inquiry regarding Fitzgerald, a probe that was described by one Pentagon insider as a fishing expedition looking for personal information such as incidents of extramarital relationships, drugs or alcohol abuse, or homosexual contacts. When none of these avenues of inquiry bore fruit, OSI hung its hat on the false accusations that Fitzgerald had engaged in unauthorized circulation of classified documents. Later, in a Kafkaesque maneuver that was unprecedented even in the annals of the Pentagon, the Air Force moved to revoke Fitzgerald's career tenure on the grounds that the original letter bestowing it was a computer error.
And I mean, we haven't even talked about, like, what he was telling people about like the C-5A, and I think his issue was that the way that they were doing Pentagon contracts at the time, I forgot how many planes the government was buying from Lockheed Martin Lockheed to produce at this time, but it was like 80 or something. There was a first batch and a second batch.
Yes.
And then the way they did Pentagon contracts is that if there were cost overruns on the first batch, they could be somewhat absorbed into the second batch. So the first batch was running 100% over budget, but it was way more than that because the second batch would have been 240% over budget, making the entire C5A project $2 billion over budget.
In fucking 1965.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Sometimes it's hard to abstract these numbers in your mind. Mm-hmm. Especially when they're just like being thrown at you in the form of a podcast. But I want you to really pause and consider how much money that is.
Yeah.
How much that could have gone to anything else.
And the whole point was like it was supposed to land on anything. Like it didn't have to land on a runway.
Yeah. It was supposed to be able to land like in the dirt.
Yeah, because I don't know how much the listeners know about the Vietnam War. But... we didn't exactly have runways
not
to land our planes.
Especially, it would have required a runway that's like 3 or 4 times the size of an actual normal runway.
Yeah.
So, that's a little hard to make happen during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
So, again, it must needs be remarked that it was a spectacular failure. There is not a C-5A plane that exists that does the thing that it's supposed to be doing, which is be massive and land anywhere. Even as the C-5A scandal was unfolding, Lockheed's finances were rapidly eroding. This is also from Profits of War. The Air Force met the company more than halfway in paying for the cost overruns, but the company still lost close to $500 million on the contract, which is fucking insane because, like...
It's a horrible business model. Like, yeah. Lockheed, for all of its history, has been going out of business every, 10 years.
Yeah. And they managed to, talk to the right people, lobby the right people, and just continue to build shitty-ass planes.
Yeah.
They build, I guess... some functional planes, which is why they remain in business.
Yeah, I mean, the C-5A is used, but I don't know. Do you know what happened to the first one delivered to the Air Force?
Let's hear it.
It exploded and set on fire for 3 hours.
3 hours?
And then a bunch of them showed up. The other one showed up missing parts. Another one crashed. It did not go well. And they could not land. They could only land on paved runways.
Yeah. So part of me kind of is obsessed with that aspect of Lockheed because they're constantly just wasting time on arms that don't work. Because also, I think what should be in your mind this entire episode is that when this is successful, this results in massive death and destruction that's uncalculable to the human mind. Yeah. Incalculable, I should say. And so it's kind of funny.
Especially Lockheed's early history. It's easy to laugh at because they are, not doing very well, and they're just two dorky brothers who can't figure out how to make an airplane, and they could just do anything else, but they exist. Well, and then they fail at Panning for Gold, whatever. But now it's Lockheed Martin is they're the biggest arms manufacturer in the world. They make bombs. They make
missiles and rockets and shit.
And they work on nuclear stuff too. Yeah.
So it's a bit of a sobering moment to think about, again, incalculable suffering that comes from Lockheed Martin.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's a little bit slay whenever they make something that doesn't work.
Yeah. I'm a fan.
I am, in fact, a fan of the things that don't work. So the C-5A scandal, one could call it, drains Lockheed Martin of an incredible amount of money. They are thirsting for any sort of contract they can get, which leads us to the 1976 bribery scandal.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce the concept or add anything from Vietnam?
I mean, do you know about the coffee maker and the toilet seat?
Yes, I would like to hear it from you, though.
Are you sure? Yes.
I
mean, it happened later, but it was for the C-5A plane.
Let's do it.
We just said it went $2 billion over budget, the project. And the thing with when they give no bid contracts to these companies is they can charge whatever they want for whatever. And I'm just imagining 2 douchebags engineering for Lockheed, and they're like, you know what, we're going billions of dollars over budget. What if we charge the federal government $7,662 for every coffee maker that has to be on this airplane? And I wanted to drive myself a little crazy, so yes. I went to an inflation calculator. This happened under Reagan when they were adding the coffee makers to the plane.
C-5A, yeah.
So this, I don't know. What do you make your coffee in, Christian?
I bought my girlfriend an espresso machine.
Okay.
And she's a huge coffee drinker.
Okay.
This machine, it was on Facebook Marketplace, and it was a Christmas present, but it did cost me like a couple $100.
Okay.
It was like a very nice coffee machine.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
I use a French press. I got it for $20 like 6 years ago.
Meow meow.
And, so this coffee maker, adjusted for inflation, cost $27,000. Like they're just, and the same thing happened with toilet seats. Like they charged the government $600 per toilet seat.
I laughed so hard I might have them like. It is truly insane what they decided to do, and I honestly slay. At least the toilet seats and the coffee makers work.
Yeah, and I hope the coffee is delicious.
It better be.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what a $27,000 cup of coffee tastes like.
Because I don't know what they're using those planes for anymore. I don't know what they were using. They never used them in Vietnam. No. They never used them in Vietnam.
It's funny and it's sad, but it's also very funny. As a result of the massive budget overruns of the C-5A during Vietnam, the federal government decides to bail out Lockheed Martin through a series of, this is honestly where I kind of fall asleep, like loans, and there's this specific stipulation for the loan. They got to pay this back. They open a lot of credit. Stuff I don't understand as someone who's not into finance, shall we say. However, they are unable to pay back the original, whatever they're supposed to be paying back. And they decide to go a little rogue, to go a little nut, and bribe officials in West Germany, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia to purchase Lockheed Martin shit.
Yeah.
This is such a fucking international scandal. They spent, I think, $22 million I'm sorry. Yeah, it is $22 million. Something like that. Yeah, they'd paid $22 million in bribes to foreign officials. This led to a near abdication of the throne in Netherlands. Like, it's such a national scandal there.
I don't have any notes about it, but I remember the Japan situation being nuts. Like, being crazy.
Fucking nut is the only way that I know how to describe it. They paid 2.4 billion yen to earn the contract from ANA. 500 million yen was received by the prime minister, which is an insane amount of money. And on October 30th, 1972, ANA announced this is in Japan, its decision to purchase 21 Lockheed L-1011 TriStars, which cost approximately $5 million each, even though it had previously announced that it optioned to purchase the DC-10. The 1986 U.S. President's Commission on Organized Crime revealed that from 1969 to 1975, Lockheed used Deakin Company, a large foreign exchange operator, as the conduit used by Lockheed Martin to transfer the money to bribe Japanese officials. It was disclosed that $8.3 million was moved to Deak's office in Hong Kong, where a Spanish-born priest representing Lockheed took the cash and carried it to Japan. This is the part that I wrote, just open the Wikipedia page and pray. So all that was from Wikipedia.
Nice.
Because I had written a bunch of stuff about other stuff. But I feel like Lockheed Martin is so fucking huge that the 1976 bribery scandal like is only a footnote in my notes of like all of the other shit that they get into.
They have so many scandals.
So many scandals, and continue to be, again, the number one defense manufacturer in the world. It's, again, like, I can't emphasize enough the scale of this one. This is the biggest one the Busted Business Bureau has ever done. Because usually I pick like one scandal from a really big company and talk about it, but this one there's just so many.
Yeah, and they're all so bad. And it's good. It's just good for people to know because like whenever they pay their taxes, I forgot what it is. Like the author of this book also found this statistic. It's like 30 cents of every dollar goes to like private defense contractors.
What?
Yeah.
That is fucking crazy. I cannot believe that. And again, this bribery scandal does not put Lockheed out of business properly.
No.
Because you've got things like the Cold War happening, Desert Storm. The best thing that ever happened to Lockheed Martin was, in fact, 9/11.
Yeah.
Because around the late 90s, I think there were proposals to not decrease defense spending, but to stop the increase of defense spending. Pre 9/11, post 9/11, it's basically in the bag for Lockheed Martin. This is also after all of the mergers of the 90s, the mergers being made out of necessity in the 90s, because once the Soviet Union fell in 1990, it was like, well, what do we do now? Fuck our drag.
Yeah. Yeah, that rhetoric started like because all of the aviation companies had to pivot to military contracting, like before World War I, but it happened primarily after World War I, and like that was the messaging about Pentagon spending, because they knew all of their money was going to come from the Pentagon.
Yeah,
right then, like that, they were like, okay, this is like our only customer. Because prior, Lockheed was only kind of selling planes to like private pilots, like Amelia Earhart's plane.
I totally forgot to mention
was made by Lockheed.
It was like the Vega 5B. Yeah,
rest in peace. But
it was the one that I don't know if it's also the one she unsuccessfully flew, but it was the one she successfully flew overseas. Was the Lockheed Vega 5B. TBD on the one she died in.
But that was the messaging that like all these companies pushed back then and still have to push right now, is like, even when the US isn't at war, like we as taxpayers benefit from massive Pentagon spending bills because of national security.
And in addition to that, what a lot of, at least like politicians push to people is like, this will create jobs.
Yeah.
Like if there's a Lockheed facility in, for example, Marietta, Georgia, it's going to create X amount of jobs. And I feel like, have you ever seen the musical Hadestown, or is this reference not going to land?
I have not seen it.
All right. Well, I don't know if I need to explain it, but there's like a whole song where everyone's just like, oh, all we do is like work away all day at like basically like a border wall for Hadestown. Oh, dang. And they're like literally the way that we make money is by building this defense wall for literally no reason. And it's like, I don't know. If you've ever seen the musical Hadestown, I feel like it very much applies to Lockheed Martin. And I'm the only one who's saying that. I'm the only one who's brave enough to say it.
That's how they got a bunch of their contracts, like for the Cheyenne helicopter. I mean, that story's crazy, too.
I want to hear it.
What year was that? It was also in the late 60s, early 70s.
How apropos.
So it was like a great 2 decades for them.
What a crazy time to be working at Lockheed Martin in the 60s and 70s.
They were tasked with building this ridiculous helicopter that was supposed to fly forward like a small plane. Like, I don't know like if you're familiar with how helicopters work, but that is not how they fly. Like, they're supposed to go up like a helicopter, but then straight forward. And, okay, they were awarded this contract, and they had never, ever engineered a helicopter ever in the history of the company.
Oh,
and
my God.
It was supposed to be... it's supposed to accomplish much more than the Cobra, which was the helicopter that the military was primarily using at the time. They didn't have a prototype yet. They did build a helicopter.
Who needs one?
And it crashed into the Pacific Ocean. But the crazy, it's another scandal. It's like the guy from the Air Force that awarded Lockheed this contract for the Cheyenne helicopter, which costs triple in the research and development phase than it was supposed to.
How brave in the research and development phase.
I know,
to
they're
cost
just
triple.
Doing it immediately.
Yeah.
His name was Willis Hawkins. And the fun thing about Willis Hawkins is he worked in that position in the military for a few years, awarded them this contract. Can you guess where he worked immediately prior?
I don't even know.
He was an executive at Lockheed. And when he made the decision, he was getting deferred salary payments from Lockheed.
My God.
Yeah, so he's cool. And it didn't work, and they never built the helicopter.
No, I can't. I can't believe that
they weren't able
to. They
couldn't figure it out.
Flies like a small plane.
Yeah, they might now. I have no idea. But this was in the 60s. It's not.
That's rough, buddy.
Flew.
Do you want to talk about the F-35? Is it time to discuss the F-35?
I mean, go ahead. Fire it off.
This plane has been doomed to fail from the beginning. The basic idea, so this comes about around the 90s of like the idea for this plane. The idea is that it can be used by the Army, Navy, and Air Force. And in order to satisfy all three of those things, it needs to be stealthy, but also needs vertical landing capabilities, but also fast, but also quiet, but also needs like larger wings for the Navy or whatever.
It's not quiet.
It's not quiet
That
at all.
part didn't work out.
It did not work. It's not very stealthy. It was proposed in the 90s. Skeptics said it couldn't be done. And honestly, they slayed.
I love skeptics. Sometimes they're really right.
They really, yeah. And this one, they could not have been any more right. This is from Profits of War. At the June 2007 Paris Air Show, the company was embarrassed when schedule slippage meant that only one JSF, a prototype, had been produced. In lieu of having planes to show or to do stunts for the ever-popular exhibitions, Lockheed Martin commissioned paintings portraying the imagery of the F-35s flying over each partner nation.
I didn't know that. They're like, hey guys, we don't have shit to show you.
So how about a painting?
Was it a bad painting? That'd be funny.
Oh shit. You know what? I didn't bother looking up the painting, but I think I will and post it on the Instagram.
Okay,
I think that's what I'll have to do. I cannot imagine the thought process behind let's get a painting instead. Mm-hmm. Not like... Honestly, I would think, like, let's animate a video of what it could do, or let's do
There's so many options.
Or let's not say anything. Let's just drop out. Let's not go.
Yeah.
Because it is just like an air show. It's the Paris Air Show. I think you can live without it. Mm-hmm. Say we got sick, you know?
Yeah.
Pilot's sick, can't go.
They got COVID in 2007.
But honestly, commissioning a painting, I also would die to know the artist's thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, who's the artist? Who did they get? Who was like...
And they were probably paid like $1 million.
So that is already not great to hear about the F-35, right? That it's already falling behind schedule in 2007. It was already behind schedule before then. The F-35's program difficulties carried over until late 2009, even after Secretary of Defense Robert Gates had vouched for it as a worthy follow-up on the F-22, which we can talk about the F-22 later. An internal Pentagon report leaked in late November, 5 months after Congress ended the F-22 program, suggested that the Joint Strike Fighter was so far behind schedule it could cost an extra $16.6 billion over a 5-year period. The rush to produce planes without full testing raised the specter of expensive fixes after the aircraft had been produced, and thus the retention of large, expensive engineering staffs much further into the life of the project than originally intended. It hurts. It hurts so bad. And this is also one of those things where they had... purchased it before any sort of, again, meaningful prototype had been produced, which many people are very critical of, like the fly before you buy model of getting planes and shit. Because I do feel like that you need a worthy prototype in order to make such a lofty claim as this is going to work for the Army, Navy, and Air Force.
Yeah, it's been so long now. And and now they're like, I mean, they terrorize people all over the world. And like, Saudi Arabia has a bunch of F-35s that they use in Yemen. Mm-hmm. The UAE has a bunch of F-35s, or have been trying to buy F-35s from the U.S. for quite some time now. Mm-hmm. And now also they I guess terrorize children on playgrounds in Vermont. and each test flight costs $36,000, and it's taxpayer funded too.
My God.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. And part of the difficulty, I guess I should have talked about the F-22 first, but whatever. We skipped right to the F-35. Part of the issue of the F-35 and why it keeps dragging on and on, because we're still talking about this in like 2021.
Yeah.
Like there's still articles being written about how behind schedule and how not working it is. From the New York Times, quote, one factor that kept sending the F-35 program off course was the level of control Lockheed exerted over the program. The company produces not only the F-35 itself, but the training gear for the pilots and maintenance technicians, the aircraft's logistics system, and its support equipment like carts and rigs. Lockheed also manages the supply chain and is responsible for much of the maintenance of the plane. This gave Lockheed significant power over almost every part of the F-35 enterprise. Quote, I had a sense after my first 90 days that the government was not in charge of the program, said Bogdan, who assumed oversight as the program's executive officer in December 2012. It seemed that, quote, all major decisions, whether they be technical, whether they be scheduled, or whether they be contractual, were really being made by Lockheed Martin, and the program office was just kind of watching.
Yeah.
That's not something you want to hear from the guy who's overseeing the project.
And I think in the early 2000s, like, as the F-35 system was, like, coming in, like, starting to be a thing, barely. Lockheed was also trying to like dip its hands into a bunch of different things. Like they really wanted to be, Guantanamo Bay detention facility in Cuba that was like, arbitrarily detaining, torturing hundreds of Muslims from the War on Terror. They really wanted to contract their interrogators. So they tried to like open up like a branch of Lockheed Martin that was like
a consulting firm.
Yeah, consulting for like to send interrogators to Cuba. It didn't work. That didn't even work.
They can't build planes. They can't build interrogation firms. They can't do a fucking thing right.
No.
part of the F-35's, I guess, multiple scandals over the last fucking 20 plus years involves a tweet. Danica, how much do you think a single tweet is worth?
I don't know.
Oh God, what was it? 2018. Oh, when was it? Maybe 2016. I don't know. At some point between 2016 and 2018, Donald Trump tweeted, based on the tremendous cost and wait, I'm sorry, I have to read it in his voice. Not in his voice, but based on the tremendous cost and cost overruns of the Lockheed F-35, I've asked Boeing to price out a comparable F-18 Super Hornet! ! Lockheed Martin shares fell about 2%, while Boeing's went up 0.5%. Trump's tweet shaved off $1.2 billion of Lockheed Martin's market value.
That's awesome. That is the best thing he ever did.
That is very slay. I did not realize the power of a single tweet until that moment. And so he and Marilyn Houston, the girl boss CEO, for quite a period of time.
Oh, she just bought a beautiful home in D.C.
Oh, did she?
It's a stunning home.
At least she has taste.
Yeah.
They had a very tense relationship, which is not a great thing to have when you're the number one defense contractor in the world and you're the president. Yeah. Which is very funny. Honestly, it's like very slay. Quote, this is from Bloomberg, Lockheed Martin Corporation's F-35 jet remains marred by more than 800 unresolved software and hardware deficiencies of varying severity that could undercut the readiness, missions, or maintenance, blah, 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 blah. Canada will begin talks with Lockheed Martin to purchase 88 new F-35 warplanes, selecting the U.S. aerospace giant over a European rival to deliver fighter jets as soon as 2025.
I don't get it.
Like, why?
Like, I mean, I get it. It, like, whatever. Like, okay, the U.S. makes up 40% of the global arms trade. Mm-hmm. So if any of these deals were to fall through, it's like our economy. That's a big reason why we sell so many weapons.
Yeah.
But, what was I going to say? I forgot. It's gone. It's gone. Oh, Canada, they're just buying, like, 'cause an F-35 crashes every month.
Yeah.
It's pretty frequent.
You can just look up F-35 crash. Like, there was one in 2014 where it caught on fire before the pilot took off.
Oh, hell. So rest in peace. I don't know.
No, he's fine.
Oh, cool.
He got it. Nice. So had it caught on fire 30 seconds later, he would be resting in peace.
Yeah.
Because it was again right before he took off. So it caught on fire. He had to get out.
Lockheed Martin tweeted a couple weeks ago. They were like, our first female F-35 pilot.
Okay, this has been going on since the 90s. Why now?
I know.
Girls. Hashtag more girls in warplanes.
Yeah. One just in the last few months crashed into the South China Sea. Oopsies. And a bunch of Chinese politicians were clowning it on Twitter. It's a joke to every other country. They're like instead of giving Americans free college, they're making them pay for planes that crash into the ocean. That's what we get.
Yeah.
We don't get free medicine. We get airplanes that make kids shit their pants in South Burlington.
That is every single other country's joke on Twitter is to clown us for not having free healthcare or other issues that we have, and it's man, they're really right. They really crushed it on that one dunk that they have. The F-35, what a fucking nightmare through and through. One of their planes, the F-22, was so bad it united John McCain and President Obama. Mm-hmm. They came together. This was pre-F-35. At the same time of F-35.
The F-35s are supposed to replace the F-22s.
Yes.
In theory. It hasn't worked out.
No, it has not worked out even a little bit. The F-22 was also plagued by, structural issues. Oh, also the F-35, I wanted to say this. One of the issues it has is that it has delayed video feed to the pilots, which I never thought was I guess I didn't really know how jets worked because I thought pilots used their eyes to look out, but I guess they don't. They're looking at a video feed because they can't see everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know what that?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? I never understood that about military technology, but it was freaking nuts. So then I was in a YouTube rabbit hole of watching plane, jet footage from the eyes of a pilot. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It's not very interesting, but I wanted to tell you. And it's okay. You know what? I appreciated that you were nodding along, even though it was not very interesting.
I mean, delayed footage seems really bad.
Yeah, it seems really tough. Yeah. Because it seems it's already hard to see.
Yeah. But especially if it's raining. I heard that doesn't work out very well.
It was supposed to survive thunderstorms, and not a single one.
No.
So anyways, I guess the thing that's supposed to be the thing that F-35s are replacing, the F-22, they had half the planes for twice the price because of all the budget overruns and, again, structural issues. There were 2 representatives who had wanted to lobby for this to no longer be a thing. The Army quietly but firmly agreed. This is also from Prophets of War. Officials had noted that the service could equip a whole division, as many as 15,000 soldiers, for the cost of one F-22. So the Army's like, okay, let's get rid of the F-22. Representative Phil Gringy, whose district contains the F-22 assembly plant, searched frantically for somewhere to get the money to keep the F-22 going. He went so far as to issue a bizarre statement to the effect that the plane should be funded in lieu of wasting money on developing a vaccine for the swine flu.
Nice. That's awesome.
Nice.
That's a man who writes for his constituents.
Yeah, that is a ride or die. If I lived in his district, I'd be like, this man cares about me.
You can keep your jobs, get the swine flu.
And again, this is something where John McCain and President Obama come together to cut the F-22s. That's honestly all I wanted to say about the F-22s.
Yeah.
Unless you wanted to add anything.
No.
It's just like the same shit, different toilet.
Yeah. I mean, for such a brief moment, like, we thought we were going to abandon that kind of thing. Like, because the F-22s were being phased out and have been. But essentially Lockheed just lobbied, okay, but can you just buy a bunch of F-35s? Like, we promise they'll exist one day.
We're supposed to have them until, like, what, 2060 or 2070?
Yeah.
Is, like, how far the contract goes? Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And so, if I may, for a moment, I would like to pivot away from the shitty technology that Lockheed Martin makes. I would like to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Hell yes. I've been waiting for this.
The following bit, like this whole history of like diversity and inclusion, is the like subject of several full-length novels, because Lockheed has existed for such a long time. People have been writing about its history of like racial integration at its facilities. There's an employee, Harry Hudson, who was employed in the wake of the Korean War. His spidey senses started tingling the second he got hired, and he was like, I have to document every single thing that like happens to me at Lockheed, or like all of my promotions, all of my whatever. Consequently, he started feverishly documenting everything about his experiences, good and bad. His life's work was to publish a memoir about it, which he was close to doing before he died. His family posthumously published the memoir, Working for Equality, The Story of Harry Hudson. And honestly, the book is thrilling to read. It's kind of like neutral net positive about Lockheed Martin, which is kind of, but it's still quite interesting to read at the same time. There are some quotes such as, he's talking about like race, social justice, all this stuff that's like pretty interesting and, you know, academically dense. But then he'll also say things like, some of the people in the plant protection at Lockheed Martin were the dumbest bastards that ever drew a breath. I later learned that the director and assistant director had been brainwashed to the degree that they were showing their cost consciousness and company loyalty to the extent that they didn't want raises. Sounds stupid, you better believe it. And then there's another quote of his: to be able to cuss out your boss is always to be done in private. Never, never in the presence of others. Never embarrass him. State the conversation is man to man. Cut loose with everything except bodily injury. 9 times out of 10, the boss will realize that he needs a little friendly advice and appreciates if you're right. If not, then that's number 10, so look for another job. So that book is pretty slay. Anyways, there's no like one insight you can pull from Hudson's memoir, but worth mentioning is that his perspective, which is pretty shared across the board, is that integration was messy as hell. Because most of the white people involved had deeply held prejudices that just don't go away with the presence of like one black employee. And this is a feature that extends more and more through Lockheed Martin's history. Like the closer you get to now, there's still incredibly racist employees, like dangerously racist. Like the largest EEOC case in history, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, for a single individual, $2.5 million was a Lockheed Martin employee.
Oh, really?
Largest in history. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Fucking nuts, because they're like horrifically racist at the Lockheed Martin facilities. With each new war, there's a massive push towards more diversity within the company because they need more employees and there's, I don't know, more people going overseas. So it's pretty sickening in like a bad way. We need to ramp up production on planes. They tend to increase diversity efforts. As time moves on, there's an increase in black management, female skilled workers, et cetera, et cetera. The early 2000s were not a good time to be at Lockheed. Here's the story. There are 11 different employees who found nooses in their offices at like different Lockheed facilities.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The company, oh God, this is from Joseph Banks, and this is a writer from the Washington Post. Quote, the company acknowledged that a noose was found, but not located in Banks's work area, which is not better.
Guys, it was in the break room. It's fine.
It's totally fine. Like, if it was at his locker, then we'd have a problem. But break room where everyone can see it? Well, then what's the issue here?
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Adding that, quote, although the incident was investigated immediately and thoroughly, the investigators had not been able to determine who was responsible. There's another employee who I think worked with Joseph Banks, or at least at a Lockheed Martin facility. Quote, Gilligant, who is 52 and white, said he heard the N-word used countless times in the workplace. He said he began reporting to the incidents to the supervisors at Lockheed, providing the names of workers who had taunted black people with nooses, then had to change his home phone number after receiving so many threats. Like, a white employee who's trying to report racism is also getting, like, incredibly threatened at Lockheed Martin. So if you're wondering who's, in the admin offices providing these F-35 contracts or whatever, it's incredibly racist employees.
We get to pay their salaries, too. That's very cool.
Mm-hmm. Gilligant says that he's seen roughly a half dozen nooses displayed during his tenure with Lockheed, and that the two most recent ones occurred in the spring of 1999. Yeah. This is also from the Washington Post. Quote, Betty Gearing, 53, who works on the wings for the C-130 from 1978 to 1991, her new Cadillac was regularly defaced in the parking lot with scratches. She had a racist term sanded off the hood and eventually gave up and gave her car to her mother.
Oh my God.
It's fucking horrific. The breadth of allegations makes Lockheed Martin's case different from the race discrimination ones settled in, from Coca-Cola. There's Tyrone Brooks, a representative in the Georgia legislature and the head of the Georgia Association of Black Elected Officials, says that the Coca-Cola suit was more confined to promotions and advancement than, hostile treatment.
Yeah.
He says, quote, Coca-Cola would not tolerate the kinds of things you see happening at Lockheed. Believe me, Lockheed is the worst I've seen in corporate America. The executives simply will not admit the fact that they have a problem. So this guy's probably seen a lot, and he says that Lockheed Martin is, the fucking worst. Guess who comes into the picture? Johnny Cochran. What? Johnny Cochran joins the legal team. Which is so fucking crazy. This is also post-OJ.
Oh, God. He's defending Lockheed?
No, he's not defending Lockheed. He's defending the employees for Lockheed. That'd be insane. Yeah, Lockheed Martin did nothing wrong. Ultimately, this class action lawsuit, even after Johnny Cochran had joined, was broken up by a judge who says that the group of employees seeking back pay, emotional damage pay, whatever, didn't constitute a class of people to be in action because it was a class action lawsuit. I don't know. Shit, I don't understand.
Yeah.
The judge recommends that each person individually file suits and they don't go anywhere because if you're one person, you can't really sue Lockheed Martin yourself. You're gonna lose. Except for Joseph Banks, I couldn't find any other employees getting as much coverage for following through on the suit. But the largest EEOC lawsuit in American history is Charles Daniels, who had been so taunted by his coworker. He was treated in an incredibly racist way by his coworkers. Asked to be moved to Hawaii to get a fucking break, and they transferred the same people to Hawaii with him.
What?
Yeah. And so he's feverishly documenting all of the insane, horrible shit that's going on to him, and is able to, again, win this case because it was just so fucking bad. And that brings us to the year of our Lord 2020.
Jim Taslett. Are we talking about the CEO?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's nothing I have to say about Jim Taslett other than, like you said, he does look like Randall from Monsters, Inc. But I want to talk about the White Man's Caucus. Can we talk about the White Man's Caucus?
Let's talk about the White Man's Caucus.
It's time to talk about the White Man's Caucus.
What congressman was so upset about that? It was Tom Cotton, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the guy who brought it to, at least I think he brought it to the attention, is Christopher Rufo, who's the guy who's the main charge against critical race theory. He's the guy who invented talking about it in such a light. He tweeted one time his strategy was to associate anything vaguely leftist with critical race theory. He's fully aware of what he does.
Yeah.
However, he did also post all the documents from the White Man's Caucus. So
that's awesome.
I lived.
The White Man's Caucus is a racial sensitivity training
run by white men as full diversity partners.
That's the title of their group.
Yes. They had a year prior done a White Man's Caucus at Sandia National Labs, which is a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin that does nuclear testing. Mm-hmm. And so I guess Lockheed Martin was like, we need one for our top dudes too.
That group has a whole other scandal in 2015.
This is from the Zoom call. This is the white man's caucus because it was taken over Zoom.
So I'm confused about this because Lockheed definitely has like white women in their executive leadership. They just didn't send them to the racial sensitivity training.
No, because it's literally like for white men. It's like
cool.
Because there's like male privilege statements they all had to like recite. There's heterosexual privilege statements. Would you like to know a few of them?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the male privilege statements, it's always stuff like, if I get a promotion, I get congratulated instead of made fun of. Or like, if I get more education, then I'm treated with more respect. Because I guess women aren't that.
Yeah.
One of them is, quote, if I'm heterosexual, it's highly unlikely that I'll ever be beaten up by a spouse or lover. That's like one of the privilege statements they had to like recite, which
I would love to be a fly on the wall.
A fly on the Zoom?
Yeah, a fly on the Zoom wall.
So this took place between June 8th and 11th of 2020. Again, oh God, the founders of the White Men as Full Diversity Partners, it's Bill Proudman and Michael Welp, which are such good names for the men who found White Men as Diversity Partners. Welp. Welp, I'm a proud man. Heterosexual privilege statements include, nobody calls me straight with maliciousness, or I did not grow up with games that attack my sexual orientation. And then they read out the slur for, like the F slur. Like
they read it out?
Yeah. I.e. smear the queer or blank tag.
Okay.
Which, like, were they reading that part out loud?
Yeah. Also, I've never heard that second phrase in my life.
I guess it outdates us.
Yeah.
There's also... The two founders wrote I'm tired statements that are supposed to be like from the perspective of people of color or women. So it'll be like, I'm tired of being told how articulate I am, or I'm tired of hearing you say that you can't find qualified people of color, et cetera, which is like...
I bet they grew so much from this.
I bet everyone grew from this experience of hearing all of this. One of the videos that they have to watch is Coca-Cola's Remove Labels This Ramadan. Have you ever seen this video?
No.
It's where they sit 6 men around the table in complete darkness and like have them have a conversation. And then they like turn the lights on and everyone's like, oh, you all look different than like I thought you would. And then the climax of the video, they reach under their seats and they pull out a Coca-Cola can that doesn't have a label on it. But on the back it says, labels are for cans, not people.
Oh, wow.
So we are removing labels this Ramadan. That's like the... Oh, that's the whole bit of it, which is so funny because White Men as Diversity Partners do partner with like Coca-Cola and AT&T and like all this other stuff. And those are in the video resources for like future white men's caucuses.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. It's maybe the funniest thing I've ever read in my entire life.
And again, like the painter, Lockheed probably paid
they wouldn't say how much they paid White Men as Diversity Partners.
Because they probably paid them millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, and what is so upsetting is that White Men as Diversity Partners is not a... It's a for-profit company, so it's a little harder to find, I don't know, find revenue statements. I think you can, but I didn't have the time. But I spent way too much time reading about the White Men's Caucus.
That's incredible.
So that is a little history of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Lockheed Martin.
So the CEO that made them do that, his name's Jim Taislet.
Yes, let's hear.
He took over after, what was the other woman's name?
Marilyn Houston.
Yeah, Marilyn Houston. And he's like,
do you know why Marilyn Houston got the job? Sorry to interrupt.
Noah.
There was supposed to be a man who was going to step in as CEO, and then he was let go because he had inappropriate contact with a like young female employee. So then they were like, guess we need a woman now. Boom, Marilyn Houston.
Oh my gosh. Girl boss moment.
Slay. It was honestly slay and yes. And then when they picked the new CEO, she was like, not another woman. I'm pulling the ladder right up with me. Anyways, Jim Taislet.
Oh, yeah. The reason I bring this up is because during the merger,
yes,
this is to backtrack a little bit to 1995, Martin Marietta merged with Lockheed and became Lockheed Martin. Lockheed was first, but like Martin Marietta basically ran the entire company. The CEO of Martin Marietta became the CEO of Lockheed Martin.
Sure.
And his name was Norman Augustine.
Mm-hmm.
I want to tell this story because it's such a common practice in defense companies.
Let's hear it.
And that it comes back to Jim Taislet, I promise. So Augustine served on the Defense Policy Advisory Committee when he was the CEO of Lockheed Martin.
Okay.
Defense Policy Advisory Committee on Trade. It had such a massive influence over arms sales. And and Lockheed Martin benefits from arms sales, and it also had a huge influence over like Pentagon budgets, that kind of thing. And over 50% of our Pentagon budget, which is $800 billion this year, goes straight to private companies like Lockheed Martin.
Slay.
So that's relevant because like all of these CEOs like are also on the boards of think tanks. Like that make our foreign policy. So Jim Taislet is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which is a super influential think tank.
Okay.
That impacts policy all the time.
Is he the chair of it, or is he just like on the think tank?
He's a board member, I think.
Okay.
So like the Council on Foreign Relations made policies like containment during the Cold War.
Oh God!
Notable alumni, Henry Kissinger. Like it's not epic. And then like his response to the BLM protest was to make these people go to the white man's caucus. And then a bunch of Republicans got so mad at him. Like I promise, like he is not just Jim Taislet, our left wing hero. You know what I mean?
He's our woke king.
Like
of diversity and slaying. That is fucking crazy.
Oh, but you mentioned something that made me think of the 2015 scandal.
Let's hear it.
Where are my notes on
I'm having so much fun. I need to say, I'm having a friggin' blast.
So one thing that Lockheed spends its money on is lobbying. Like they spend millions and millions of dollars.
Is this a Sandia Labs one?
Yes. So that's what made me think of it as Sandia Labs.
Okay, amazing.
So they lobby Congress and the Pentagon to give them certain contracts, like the Cheyenne helicopter, that kind of thing.
And also, I'm sorry to backtrack, but Sandia Labs is the subsidiary of Lockheed Martin that does nuclear testing.
Yes. In 2015, Lockheed Martin paid the Department of Justice $4.7 million because its subsidiary got caught using taxpayer dollars to lobby the government to give them a massive contract. Oopsies.
I made the same mistake at my last job.
It's such a wacky occurrence. And it's like the biggest repeat offender of federal fraud when it only exists because of federal budgets.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It was so also Sandia Labs continuously is fucking up their testing. There was a detonator that blew up in an employee's hand.
What?
As recently as like 2014. Yeah,
their hand gone?
I actually didn't check.
I mean, it must be.
It certainly must be.
I don't know how bombs work. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how they work. But if I was holding one and it went off, I would be confident I don't have a hand anymore.
I would be a little afraid, one would say.
I'd be like, ow. It hurt really bad. I mean, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe I wouldn't feel anything.
And there's a specific woman that Sandia Labs was lobbying, and I'll have to pull up her name on my little computer here. But I was looking through her Wikipedia page, and she was so enmeshed in this scandal, and it doesn't even appear on her Wikipedia page. Like you have to look this up about her to know that she was part of it. Lobbying. I don't know. You talk for a second. Woman.
Was she beautiful? I don't know who this woman is.
She was I'll post on my Instagram later, whatever. She was some representative. And you know what? She is beautiful. Honestly, of all the stories that I have about Lockheed Martin, I feel like we did just simply scratch the surface, and yet go so deep at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm fresh out in my tank.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Of Lockheed Martin stories.
I think that's all I have. But honestly, everything we've talked about is such a it's so routine for all of these companies. It's like the same thing happens with Boeing, the same thing happens with Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Dynamics, and then they pour all their money back into like political campaigns.
Yeah.
So.
And I feel like I need to once again emphasize the scale and how I feel like if you read about even just one of these at any other like non-arms defense company, it would be like a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Like it's such an insane scandal that the two of us could just sit here and like have swap Lockheed Martin stories. Like we're just like sitting at a bar like, oh man, did you hear this thing happened? Like it's fucking gossip.
Yeah.
Like it's insane how common this is for them. Yeah.
And if you get mad enough about it, like things do change. Like it's silly, but when the coffee maker thing happened and when the toilet seat thing, at the same time they were charging like $70 for hammers, like $9 for a nail.
Yeah.
Like they were doing this for everything. And so when that scandal happened, like, so many people got upset with it because they were just like outraged at the military budget and like where all their money was going.
Yeah.
So I don't know, get pissed about it more often. Like, this is our money. This is what our taxes go to.
Yeah. And the amount of like overbilling scandals that are not the ones that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Like there's a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin that's Tools and Metals Inc.
Wow.
The president of Tools and Metals Inc. went to fucking prison for this.
Okay.
Like, they were overcharging for like perishable building materials, which I guess is like nuts and bolts. I guess those do perish over time.
Tools and metals,
like bolts and shit.
Yeah.
And Lockheed Martin had to pay $15.85 million to like settle that specific one. But that's like, it's just like one of the very, very many of like settlements that Lockheed Martin pays to the federal government to then I guess just receive again for the new contract.
I know. Yeah, there's a bunch of lawsuits open against Lockheed Martin. If it's either in Florida or California, the manufacturing of weapons, the use of weapons, anything that Lockheed makes is like so detrimental to the environment.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot how many gallons of gas. It's like several gallons of gas that the F-35s use every like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so they like their manufacturing plant like poisoned the groundwater or something in like Florida or California, or like the dirt. I don't know. So it's like causing irreparable, like, oh, and then the Lockheed Martin was contracted to do the environmental cleanup on one of them. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This is money going in a big circle.
It just like, it gets funneled in and then just circles, and then someone gets a nice house in DC.
Someone gets a beautiful house.
Just a gorgeous house.
Beautiful house.
A little slice of paradise.
Look it up, everyone. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful home.
I guess there's a lot of stuff I got to post on my Instagram after this one.
Yeah. Please post Marilyn Houston's beautiful home.
I will. That is a girl boss and a slay.
I bet the interior design is disgusting.
Oh, I'm sure.
Rich people have horrible taste.
It's impressive how bad their taste is.
Like, I know there's like a lot of buttons on her couch. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking up Marilyn Houston's home. I'm looking at the inside right now.
That is disgusting. That's horrible.
Ow. Ooh, I don't like whatever is going on here.
Oh.
There's like a painting.
It seems inappropriate.
Yeah, there's a few inappropriate paintings, inappropriate handrails, inappropriate columns.
These couches look so uncomfortable.
Yeah, those are not for sitting.
No.
Those are for display. Oh man, I'm looking at her bedroom now. She's got a cheetah print throw at the foot of her bed.
Oh my god.
And her bed looks like a cage. Anyways.
Check out her beautiful home, everyone.
Check out the beautiful home. What I would give to live in that home.
I mean, I'd love a home. Yeah. I'd love a house one day.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Wouldn't it be nice to have a home?
So yeah, that's Lockheed Martin. In a friggin' nutshell. Again, surface scratching.
Yeah.
I
do recommend the book, Prophets of War. It's very good.
It's
very funny.
It's incredibly funny. It's you can't put it down.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a fantastic book. So
yeah, follow William Hartung on Twitter.
Yeah.
He doesn't post very much, but
I'll follow him anyway.
He works at the Quincy Institute. They write a lot of really interesting stuff about foreign policy and arms sales and that kind of thing.
Do you talk to him often? Like, do you have a chance to talk to him often?
Yeah, he's on a lot of like coalition calls about like I go to like monthly meetings about the arms trade. He's typically there. So
we'll give him a big shout out and a big kiss from me.
Yeah.
Well, next time you see him.
Oh.
I don't know why those words came out of my mouth. I also haven't eaten today.
Oh. Well, thank you for having me on. I had a great time. I've been looking forward to this for weeks.
Me too. Do you want to plug any socials or anything before you leave?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at Wife of Toast. It is on my Code Pink business cards. They were like, we're going to put your Twitter on it. And I'm like, oh, that's great.
And so you've never so now you can't change Wife of Toast.
I have considered changing it, but I think, my personal brand does mean something to me. I love toast. So
I'm Clown Bathroom on Twitter.
Yeah. I love when I get the notification that Clown Bathroom has liked my tweet.
And Clown Bathroom likes most of your tweets. Say it. So do that. Oh, follow Busted Biz Bureau on the internet too, if you're so inclined. Don't follow Clown Bathroom. Please don't. And also follow anything Code Pink does. Code Pink is always producing excellent work. Sign up for their newsletter. I open every single one of those damn emails.
Oh, thank you. I see the open stats on the back end of the web.
Really?
Yes.
I'm a fervent opener, especially when it says Danica from Code Pink.
Oh, thank you.
Then I'm like, it's time to open.
It always makes me so happy when my friends tell me they're signed up for those emails. I'm like, oh gosh, now I have to really pay attention. There's no typos in there.
So you can have spelling errors for strangers, but not for your besties?
Yeah.
Okay.
If my bosses are listening, I've never had a typo. And any alert that's sent to thousands of people every week. It's never happened.
Never seen a typo. Also, you have a fundraiser going on right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when's this?
Actually, you know what? It'll probably be done by the time the podcast comes out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're doing a very incredible fundraiser that's almost at its goal, right?
Yeah, we're like $1,000 away, which is pretty cool because we were supposed to have it open for weeks, but it's only been a week.
Wow!
Yeah,
raised nearly $20,000 for Yemen in a week.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy. Yeah. Congratulations!
Thank you.
Amazing work that you do. It is so fucking cool to have you on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And it's so cool to be your friend.
Oh, thanks, Christian. You too.
Danica also does improv comedy.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Has done improv comedy.
I have done it. I almost did a tight 5 at the Lincoln Lodge. I did it.
Really?
Yeah.
You should have.
Lou and Parker wanted me to do it, and then I was like, or Lou offered it to me. Then there were too many people I knew here. It's like, no.
I look forward to seeing that tight 5 someday.
It'll be a JFK impression. It's I can't do it on here because I can't do it on here. My bosses are going to listen to this.
Okay, we can cut. We can cut it. Okay, goodbye everyone. See you later.